People have been asking me for technology news content for a long time. Therefore, in this video, I will share with you the technology news of the past week. Let's see what is on the technology agenda these days and how these developments reflect on users. First, let's start with one of the most highly anticipated topics. 1. Intel's new processors. It is almost impossible to talk about Intel briefly. New chip factory investments inevitably pull the topic toward a more political side. Therefore, I will tell you about the tip of the iceberg here, which is the part that directly concerns the user. First of all, let's start with the factory issue. Intel is working on its own factory where it can manufacture chips using the 18 angstrom, or roughly 1.8 nanometer manufacturing process. In this facility, it aims to produce chips for both its own processors and for different brands. However, manufacturing chips is a much more difficult process than designing them. That is why they experience some difficulties initially. It is truly not easy to stand out when facing TSMC, which has been the leader in advanced manufacturing processes for years. Currently, the factory is ready and production has started. However, since wafer efficiency is not yet at the desired level, the optimization process continues. The main reason for news headlines like Intel is doing badly is this production efficiency issue. So, what do these processors promise us? Right now, on the desktop side, the Core Ultra 200, the Arrow Lake series, sits on the LGA 1851 socket. In March or April, the Core Ultra 200 Plus, the Arrow Lake Refresh series, is expected to launch. This series will be an improved version of the current LGA 1851 processors, and the Core Ultra 300 Panther Lake is positioned as a series more focused on mobile devices. However, the series generating the real excitement is the Core Ultra 400 Nova Lake with the LGA 1954 socket, which will arrive with Intel's new manufacturing technology. There is no definitive information about Nova Lake right now. Most of the chatter is based on leaks. So let me summarize what we have heard so far. As we constantly mention, there will be a transition to the LGA 1954 socket. The 1.8 nanometer manufacturing process will be utilized. The new generation ribbon FET transistor design will come into play. The power via backside power delivery architecture, which provides solid battery life on the mobile side, will be used. With the new Xe3 Celestial graphics architecture, we might see an increase in APU performance and improved NPU capabilities. Additionally, Intel is expected to transition to an architecture similar to the chiplet design that AMD has been using for a long time. To explain without getting bogged down in technical details, the processor won't be a single block. It will consist of multiple blocks. This will establish a slightly more modular structure. This could translate to lower production costs through the use of shared components and potentially more competitive pricing. What we are hearing in the technical specifications department, which interests users the most, is quite intriguing. It is also rumored that in response to AMD's 3D V-Cache technology, Intel is working on a cache solution they call Big Last Level Cache, or BLLC. Thanks to this structure, it's claimed that an L3 cache of around 288 megabytes could be offered. Most likely, this massive cache capacity will initially be exclusive to high-end models, but over time it may be possible to see it in more affordable models as well. Next up is some bad news. Certain sources say that when the power limit is removed on high-end Nova Lake processors, they could draw as much as 700 watts of power. This is terrifying, even for extreme overclockers. In such a scenario, you would need to cool the motherboard as well, alongside the processor. However, the critical point here is this. These figures apply when power limits are entirely removed. In other words, when they are released with stock settings, it is highly probable that they will be much more controlled and tame. So in summary, Intel is aiming for a major comeback with Nova Lake. If they can satisfy users regarding socket longevity and get the pricing right, the rivalry with AMD could become incredibly fierce once again. But wait, we aren't done. There is one more piece of good news for you on the Intel front. But before that, I want to tell you something about our sponsor. If you are a regular watcher of my channel and similar tech content, chances are you might be also interested in creating your own software. But this road might be challenging to approach, as programming can be quite complicated. This is where today's video's sponsor, Boot.dev, comes in. Boot.dev takes you from a mere beginner to a programming expert through a series of gamified, RPG-like lessons about back-end web development in Python, SQL, Go, and even more. I've personally been trying it out myself, and I can say that the game-like experience made the experience way more enjoyable, memorable, and engaging than any other programming learning method I've ever tried. You can earn XP, complete quests, and even fight bosses as you move up the ranks to reach your dreams of becoming a developer. Stuck? You can ask Boots, a Bear AI wizard and your personal tutor, to nudge you in the right direction. And if you're still confused, the people at the boot.dev Discord community are ready to help you. If this sounds enticing but you're worried about pricing, don't worry, because all content is free to read and watch. With a paid membership, you get the added bonus of AI assistance and the game mechanics I listed earlier. And with a 30-day no-questions-asked refund policy, you can rest assured you won't regret giving it a try. Head over to boot.dev and use my code TMT, or scan the QR code on the screen to get 25% off for your entire first year on the annual plan. Thank you, boot.dev, for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to the video. 2. Frame generation everywhere with Intel XeSS. Yes, you heard that right. Intel plans to expand its XeSS frame generation technology across a much wider range of products. This support is coming to A and B series Intel graphics cards, and most importantly, to Core Ultra APUs. This development is especially massive on the APU side. Thanks to this, you will have the opportunity to play a game you want on a much thinner laptop. I shouldn't forget to add, Intel's resolution scaling technology, XeSS, has an open and flexible structure. Because of this, it works not only on Intel GPUs but also on graphics cards from different brands. For example, it is entirely possible to run XeSS-supported games on NVIDIA and AMD graphics cards as well. FSR and XeSS can sometimes outperform each other depending on the game. In summary, Intel has started taking the right steps in terms of software too. They deserve praise for not completely turning their backs on the past while investing in the future. Now let's step away from Intel and move on to a different manufacturer. 3. Apple's Special Experiences event and newly released products. This year's Apple Spring event took place between March 2 and 4. Apple launched numerous new devices during this showcase. The standout devices are as follows. The iPhone 17e was announced as a more budget-friendly model. iPad Air models featuring M4 processors were introduced. A new MacBook model positioned in the sub-$1,000 price segment was announced. Surprisingly, this model uses the A18 Pro processor, which we previously saw inside the iPhone 16 Pro. MacBook Air models equipped with M5 processors were introduced. New MacBook Pro models featuring M5 Pro and M5 Max processors were showcased. Finally, the new Mac Studio and Studio Display were also announced at the event. Looking at the big picture, we witnessed a very strong wave of updates for those already using the Apple ecosystem or those considering making the switch. Now let's leave Apple behind and move on to the inescapable topic, the RAM crisis. 4. The RAM crisis. Although I have already made 2 separate videos on the channel regarding this issue, developments are moving so fast that it's genuinely difficult to keep up. Fresh news about the RAM crisis has surfaced over the last few weeks, so let's quickly evaluate these as well. Chinese manufacturers are in demand. Due to the memory crisis, the industry is searching for a stabilizer. At this juncture, 2 China-based manufacturers are stepping into the spotlight, CXMT and YMTC. One of the most concrete indicators of their rising prominence is the rumor that Apple might collaborate with these brands for manufacturing. CXMT and YMTC have drawn attention by offering relatively more affordable RAM and NAND products during this crisis period. And now new factory investments are on the agenda. While it is unrealistic to think they will single-handedly solve the RAM crisis, if they continue to supply affordable products, they could seriously strengthen their position in the market. Western Digital has sold out of all HDDs for 2026. The NAND crisis has severely impacted SSD prices. As a result, certain data centers and the server sector have started shifting back toward HDDs. Western Digital announced that it has sold every HDD in its 2026 production capacity and has already secured long-term agreements for the years 2027 and 2028. For the user, this means we could soon see massive price hikes on WD hard drives. I had already mentioned the recent surge in HDD prices. It looks like the pricing pressure on the storage front will persist for a while longer. The PlayStation 6 has been delayed. Due to the RAM crisis, there are whispers that the release date for Sony's new console, the PlayStation 6, could be pushed back to 2028 or even 2029. Another point of debate is the overall performance of the PlayStation 5 and its impact on the gaming landscape. There is harsh criticism that this is one of the most lackluster generations in PlayStation history. Perhaps a PS6 delay might not be terrible news for current PS5 owners. After all, there is a large demographic that feels no truly generation-defining game has been released yet to justify buying the console. Everyone's eyes are currently fixed on GTA 6. Meanwhile, another faction is still holding out hope for a Bloodborne remaster announcement. Time will tell what the future holds. Nintendo Switch 2 prices may increase. Another product that the RAM crisis could affect is the Nintendo Switch 2. It is highly possible that the Switch 2, which was positioned around the $450 mark, will experience a price hike due to soaring memory costs. Frankly, looking at the current landscape, this scenario doesn't seem surprising at all. Steam Deck US stock is depleted. On the Steam Deck side, there are stock shortages in the US and some Asian regions. One of the primary culprits is, once again, the RAM crisis and fluctuations in memory supply. However, a different theory is also circulating. Valve might have reallocated its production capacity toward the Steam machine. In other words, the current stock issues might be driven not only by the memory crisis, but also by preparations for new hardware. Even so, if you are planning to buy a Steam Deck, don't worry, because inventory is expected to be replenished toward the end of the month. Steam Machine has been delayed. The Steam Machine project that Valve has been working on has also been delayed due to the sudden spike in RAM and NAND prices. Under normal circumstances, the release date and pricing details were scheduled to be shared in early 2026. However, recent statements indicate that the sharp rise in memory costs has made it incredibly difficult to launch the product within the targeted price bracket. The company announced that it will finalize the date and price details after re-evaluating the situation. When the Steam Machine was first announced, it was already hinted that a $700 price point was highly unlikely. Given the current situation, we will be lucky if it launches with a price tag under $1,000. Now let's step away from the RAM crisis drama and move on to some more enjoyable topics. 5. Steam user reviews will display your PC specifications. We are all familiar with the user reviews on Steam, and we frequently rely on these comments when making a purchasing decision. According to recent news, Steam plans to integrate the hardware specifications of the user writing the review directly into their comment. This way, we will be able to gauge how well a game actually runs on that specific hardware. For instance, if a user complains, the game runs terribly, we can make a much more grounded judgment because we will see exactly which processor and graphics card they are using. They might be running an outdated GPU, or there might be an optimization flaw with a specific architecture. It will even be possible to analyze whether certain performance complaints are clustering around specific brands, like AMD GPUs, for example. A highly positive development. 6. Epic Games admitted its launcher is bad. While Steam is focusing on leveling up the user experience, an interesting admission came from the Epic Games camp. Epic indirectly acknowledged that its own launcher falls short when it comes to user experience. As you know, the Epic Games Store amassed a massive user base thanks to its free game campaigns. However, due to optimization issues and a lack of user interface and social features, it has had a rather unpopular launcher since its debut. In fact, many users prefer to buy the exact same game on Steam, even if it costs more, purely for this reason. Because of this, Epic Games announced that they will be rolling out major updates to the launcher toward the summer of 2026, right around May or June. It seems the button has been pressed to finally improve optimization and the overall user experience. Let's see if these updates will actually heat up the competition. And with that, we conclude the first news briefing video of the channel. If you have any suggestions regarding the format or anything else, please do not hesitate to drop them in the comments. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button. If not, feel free to dislike it. Stay mysterious until the next video. Take care, and bye.